In the case of our hypothetical person, fire generates earth, and when earth generated by fire becomes too strong, it weakens the person. His greatest need at the moment is wood, because wood can overcome earth and also generate fire. But unfortunately, he doesn't have any wood. Okay, let's take it step by step. In the face of this prescription given by fate, let's analyze it from the perspective of traditional Chinese medicine. First, let's talk about how we diagnose illnesses. The saying goes, everyone has an illness in their 8 characters. What does it mean to have an illness? Chinese culture emphasizes the concept of balance, which is a common principle in all aspects of Chinese knowledge. Traditional Chinese medicine also emphasizes balance. So, what does it mean to be ill? The human body is like a small universe, subject to the principles of yin-yang and the 5 elements. When the balance is disrupted, it is considered an illness. For example, if the fire element becomes too strong and overcomes the metal element, that is a form of illness. Similarly, if the water element becomes too strong and overcomes the fire element, it disrupts the balance. In short, once the balance is broken, it results in illness, and the treatment involves restoring the balance. In traditional Chinese medicine, they don't look at diseases as just physical problems. It's more about finding a balance between yin-yang and the 5 elements. What does it mean to treat a disease? It means getting things back in balance, which is what traditional Chinese medicine is all about. Now, when it comes to Chinese metaphysics, what is the best Bazi? It's all about finding a balance between metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. But can we actually find a Bazi that has a perfect balance of these elements? No, such a perfect Bazi doesn't exist. If someone had a perfect balance of all these elements, their destiny would be impossible to analyze. In Chinese philosophy, they know that nothing in the world is perfect. There's no perfect cat, no perfect fish, and definitely no perfect person. That's the first thing to understand. Consequently, everyone has their own issues because it's through those issues that they get their unique qualities. Besides being a deep thinker, can I also hurdle like Lu Xiang and play basketball like Yao Ming? Is that even possible? No, it's not. To excel at everything, this individual would be a god. That's why everyone's Bazi has their own issues. Everyone has their own problems, and only heaven knows if someone is unwell. Here's another important idea to remember: each person's Bazi has their own issues, and the solution to these issues is definitely hidden within their Bazi. I want to talk about finding the right path. The biggest issue with Chinese metaphysics nowadays is that throughout history, different schools of thoughts and learning have never really agreed on anything. I've been through it myself. I started studying it on my own back in 1992, without a teacher. Driven by curiosity, I dived into the ancient texts of Chinese metaphysics, pondered and researched them on my own, and then put them into practice. The struggle is very real. The metaphysics isn't at all easy to figure out. There are some folks who can't solve the puzzle by reading texts by themselves, so they just join a specific school of thought and become a part of it. They may be able to find a teacher who teaches them a particular set of techniques to satisfy their curiosity. Nonetheless, their ability to read someone's destiny is still limited, a clear sign that Chinese metaphysics hasn't fully matured yet. Even though the Ziping technique has a system in place, different people interpret the same theories in different ways. Those who have studied the metaphysics before know the highs and lows involved. I've stumbled upon something interesting, someone I find very important, a man called Shen Feng, 15th century CE, who wrote this ancient book called Shen Feng Tong Kao. Also, he and his book share the same character, Feng, in my name, Wang Defeng. What a coincidence. It feels like there's some connection there. Anyway, let's talk about Shen Feng's main contribution. In the field of Chinese fortune-telling, he introduced this concept called illness and remedy, which is what I mentioned earlier. Firstly, everyone has an illness in their 8 characters, and secondly, there is a remedy for every illness in the 8 characters. What does it mean to diagnose an illness? First, we identify the illness through diagnosis, and once the illness is identified, we find the cause. The second step is to address the cause by finding a remedy within the same 8 characters. Within the Bazi, there is a term called Yongshen, which refers to using a specific character within the 8 characters to mitigate the severe imbalance or the illness. In the case of our hypothetical person, fire generates earth, which weakens the power of fire. Moreover, fire also wants to overcome metal, further diminishing its strength. Only one character in the Bazi can support and stabilize it, which is the character Ji representing the fire element. Now, after going through the whole Bazi, we can clearly identify one problem: a weak day stem. The day stem represents the person, while the other 7 characters represent the environment. If this environment isn't favorable and keeps weakening their power, then the illness within the Bazi is a weak day stem. So, what's causing this illness? Remember, an illness isn't the same as its cause. Let's take a fever as an example. It's an illness, but it can have different causes like a respiratory infection or a malfunctioning organ, not just a common cold. When someone has a fever, it means they have a health issue. That's the illness. In this case, the cause of the illness is the excessive presence of earth. There's a lot of earth, especially since the person was born in the month associated with earth. That's the culprit right there. Now, we need to find a remedy for this earth problem. Ideally, the best remedy is wood overpowering earth. Wood has 2 benefits: it suppresses earth and generates fire. Unfortunately, in this person's Bazi, there's no wood, so we have to settle for a lesser remedy: we turn to fire for help. Since fire weakens the excessive earth but also generates more earth, it's not as effective. The ideal remedy would be wood overpowering earth, but since that's not available, we go with fire as the second choice. At this point, we've identified the illness, found its cause, and discovered the remedy. Now, this remedy is not the best but is better than nothing. The person's destiny has been analyzed, and it is quite average, not one of wealth and prosperity. It would have been better with wood. To conclude, if a child is born at this moment with such a Bazi, his destiny would be average. That's the objective reality. Okay, so your Bazi can give you some insights about your family, such as your ancestors, parents, siblings, spouse, and kids. Now, can you have the perfect baby based on Bazi? Well, that really depends on your Bazi. What about picking a lucky time for giving birth? It probably would not work out the way you hoped, because you cannot really control something like fate. Nowadays, many people consult doctors for birth giving, especially when a C-section is recommended. In those cases, you can pick a date within a certain time frame for the operation. Let me tell you a story. I have this very good friend. 5 or 6 years ago, his wife was about to give birth, and he asked me to choose a date for him. He gave the doctor's estimate for the due date, then asked me to select a day from a bunch of options. I told him straight up that I couldn't help him with selecting a date. Why not? He asked, bewildered. I explained that the destiny of his child was already set in his Bazi. I told him there's no way to magically choose a lucky time for the birth of a super special baby based on metaphysics. It just doesn't work like that. If it worked, he'd be a god or something. I said that destiny is written by the heavens, not by us regular folks. He didn't argue against me, but you could tell he was not too happy about it. Later, he went to someone else who supposedly had knowledge about Bazi, and that person went all out choosing a date and even a specific time. Picking the right time is crucial, right? You gotta be careful with that. After a while, my friend called me and said his wife had given birth, and now he needed help with naming the little one. He gave me the exact date and time of birth. I told him I could help with that. The Chinese traditions involved in naming a child have deep connections to Chinese metaphysics. We've got special characters for occasions like this. If there's a lack of wood energy in the child's name, I can work into the name the character Sen, which means forest and contains 3 wood characters. If there's a lack of metal energy, I will add to the name the character Xin, which has 3 gold components. In the Chinese language, there is a character built from 3 characters that mean fire. There is also a character consisting of 3 characters for water. Let's continue the story about his plan for the date and time of birth. It turns out that 2 days before the chosen date, his wife's water broke, so they couldn't wait for that specific day provided by the Bazi consultant after all. They had to rush into a C-section. Fate was in control all along. Here's what we should have learned from all this. First, even if you pick a lucky date and time, circumstances might force you to give birth earlier, and you have 0 control over it. Second, you might have chosen an auspicious date for a C-section, but then someone else's emergency case may pop up, and the hospital prioritizes that one over your case. Once they handle the emergency, they might do your C-section, but by then, the lucky time has passed. Third, there will be times that the baby is born exactly when you planned. That happens if your Bazi already indicates the birth of such a baby, born at an auspicious time with a good Bazi. Therefore, whether you choose a lucky time or not, it doesn't really matter. Let's say someone uses their Bazi to predict their fate, meaning that they know up to 70% of their fate. On the other hand, someone else who has no clue about their Bazi just goes through life without any knowledge about their destiny. Does knowing their destiny actually change anything for these 2 people? Will their lives be significantly different? No, there is no difference, with the exception of one thing: mindset. After knowing their Bazi, they can find out what they can avoid. For instance, if the fire element is not suitable according to their Bazi, they should definitely steer clear of the food and beverage industry, in which fire will always be involved. For them, opening a restaurant is not a good idea. Also, if they come from a family in which everyone's Bazi shows incompatibility with fire, they should avoid going to the southern regions. This kind of thing happens quite often. One of my friends is an entrepreneur. He has businesses both in the north and the south. In Beijing, his business is thriving, but in Shenzhen, using the same approach results in failure. He can't figure out why. What if your Bazi isn't compatible with fire but you're already in the south? Let's say, in Shenzhen. If the fire element is a problem for your Bazi, stay away from fire-related industries and don't wear red clothes. If you need fire in your Bazi, then definitely do wear red. These little changes can make a difference. Let's talk about industries. Jobs in finance are related to the water and metal elements because it involves circulation. If you're involved in the cultural and publishing industry, it's connected to wood. If you need that wood energy, it's better to work in that field. In addition, your Bazi can help you figure out whether it suits you to be in a position of authority or an official position. Overall, your Bazi can help you make major life decisions and determine your general direction or path. Comment from audience: actually, you have the potential to become an official. Your Bazi indicates a strong presence of the earth element. While it may seem that way, I am not well suited for an official position. Although I do have a significant earth element which generates metal, my Yongshen is Shengguan, which relies on the metal to control earth, but metal also controls wood. The wood element represents an official career path. Therefore, pursuing an official position would not be a good fit for me. In fact, I have already made an unsuccessful attempt in the past. We've all heard of the saying, "Take fate into your own hands." This implies that your destiny is under your control instead of by some higher force. However, a destiny that you can control is not destiny in any sense. After all, how can things that you have control over be called destiny? We often believe that we shape our own life paths. In my personal case, I have a deep passion for philosophy. After completing my undergraduate studies, instead of immediately pursuing a master's degree, I worked as an editor at an art publishing house for 5 years. During that time, I achieved considerable success as an editor. I was even recognized as a New Long March pioneer by the Shanghai Municipal Bureau and received the title of Outstanding Advanced Worker from the Shanghai Publishing Bureau for 2 consecutive years. When the leaders at the Translation Publishing House learned that I wanted to pursue a master's degree at Fudan University, they held 2 meetings to persuade me to change my mind, and their conclusion was, do everything possible to keep him. They even sent representatives to Fudan University to convince me, saying that I was in their top tier and that in the future, if I didn't become the president, I would definitely be the editor-in-chief. They called it talent retention, and I am grateful for that. They saw me as a great fit for an editor, right? But I told them I couldn't do it because I simply loved philosophy. They reluctantly gave up, and so I took the entrance exam for Fudan University and pursued philosophy. It was a path I chose for myself, believing it was the right one. However, I never thought about teaching. It never crossed my mind. My goal was to complete my master's degree in 3 years and then work at Shanghai Academy of Social Sciences, which was very close to my home. I was looking forward to short work hours, few meetings, and no classes to teach, so that I could just sit at home most of the time conducting research on philosophy and writing about it. I didn't plan on becoming a renowned and respected professor, and I never even entertained the thought of being called the philosophy prince. I never had such aspirations. When the Department of Philosophy at Fudan University insisted that I stay after graduation, I did, thinking that staying at Fudan and becoming a teacher wasn't a bad outcome either. It was never my life goal, but I ended up on this path. Fate has brought me to where I am today. Some people say that your destiny is shaped by your choices, not by some external force. This concept isn't about predetermined fate, but about the fact that you can create your own life path. I told my son, don't chase after success, just focus on personal growth. If you replace the word success with growth, you've got it right. But he disagrees. He says, but Dad, didn't you become successful? I replied that this success wasn't something I actively pursued. Did I ever think about becoming a famous professor? Not at all. Did I ever consider being called the philosophy prince? No, I thought someone with that nickname should be quite young. Did I ever imagine becoming an internet sensation? No, I don't even have WeChat. It all happened without me even realizing it.